Hey, I'm Cynikay. My talents include impressing my employers and getting fired in 2 months. Today we're going to talk about Ben Shut Penis, also known as Jordan Peterson Light, the easy-to-swallow version of Jordan Peterson, whose prime demographic consists of edgy 12-year-olds with Minecraft channels. Ben Sharpie is a 35-year-old conservative pundit most notable for his best-selling novel List of Books I've Written, and utilizing an extremely shallow understanding of biology to pseudo-attack transgender identity. His methods parade under the guise of logic and reason, when in reality the ideas he provides are even shallower than 3 sentences from an IFL Science article. And although that's an incredibly low bar, it's also a bar that appeals to narcissistic high school students, which are pretty much the only people he ever debates. Ben Shapiro only debates people who are too young, angry, and passionate to properly articulate the problems they've recognized. And there's nothing wrong with being young, angry, and passionate, but boy does he take cheap shots with these people. Ben Shapiro believes that you should only debate someone if you're capable of humiliating them, and he's not capable of humiliating anyone who's read at least one decent book. In fact, on the few occasions that he actually has debated someone even remotely capable, he has either walked out, bailed, or lost his temper.
The point I'm trying to make is that your words are highly designed to produce the consensus and understanding that the book seems to want to produce. That's my point, that you write about, Judeo-Christian culture and so on, but so much of what you've said in the past would seem to turn its back on Judeo-Christian culture.
You're lecturing me on Judeo-Christian culture after you call the pro-life position barbaric?
I just asked you a question.
And I asked you a question. You failed to answer a single one of mine. Frankly, I find this whole thing a waste of time. If you want to read the book and critique the book, why don't you read and critique the book? If you want to critique me, you can think whatever you want of me.
Why don't you
frankly,
just try and
I don't
answer
care.
the
I don't frankly give a damn what you think of me since I've never heard of you.
And I've never heard of you until I briefed myself for this. But that's not the issue. You have a new book out.
Then why the hell are you interviewing me, sir?
It's an interesting book. But my point is, your book claims that society...
Well, it'd be nice if you would quote it from time to time.
Your book is... Well, actually, I've done so several times, and I'm about to do so again, if you would let me just finish the question. Your book claims that society is turning its back on Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah,
what are those values? What are the values it's turning its back on?
I'm not inclined to continue an interview with a person as badly motivated as you as an interviewer. So I think we're done here. I appreciate your time, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time and for showing that anger is not part of American political discourse. Now, Mr. Shapiro, we'll say goodbye.
Ben Snapplefact tends to capitalize off of the fact that he's a fellow Jew, which means that he and I know each other quite well because we control the media together and launch hypno-beam satellites into space that convert people into transgender leftists. Interestingly, in spite of him being Jewish, he's actually a former editor-at-large for Breitbart, a neo-Nazi news site. I have no intention of making fun of Ben Shutbird because he looks 12, or how he's small enough for me to stuff into a locker, or how his voice is super high-pitched, or his baby face. Plenty of people have done this already. Instead, I'm going to talk about his motto, facts don't care about your feelings, which is a very interesting phrase, both philosophically and in terms of how Ben Shutfart actually applies this phrase. Because he's wrong about everything. Ben Shrekpie uses extremely watered-down and sometimes outright incorrect facts. But instead of talking about that, I want to talk about the phrase facts don't care about your feelings itself. I pose to you, good sir, Lord of the Transphobes, Destroyer of SJWs, Seeker of conservative pundit money, that feelings don't care about your facts. And they shouldn't. They have no reason to. I'm going to explain this to you in a way that you punk rock conservatives will understand. Suppose that you're a lobster. You're a lobster living in the ocean and you're hungry, so naturally you decide to go out and search for some clams. That's what they eat, right? I think that's what they eat. I think that, yeah. Okay. You're eating clams. You're a clam-eating lobster. It doesn't matter. During your search, you come across another lobster. For the sake of making this less confusing, we'll make you a red lobster, and this one can be one of those blue lobsters. The blue lobster approaches you and asks, "What are you doing?" And you say, "I'm looking for something to eat." The blue lobster asks another question. Why? You think for a moment about how strange that question is and simply answer, "Because I'm hungry." The blue lobster stares at you for a moment and says, "Why feed yourself when you're hungry?" And you start to get annoyed by these strange questions that the blue lobster is asking you. "I feed myself when I'm hungry because it's unhealthy to starve." And once again, the blue lobster says, "Why do you care about your health?" And you irksomely retort, "Because I don't want to suffer or die." And the blue lobster just laughs. The blue lobster laughs in your face and says, "Why don't you want to suffer or die?" and suddenly you feel a shiver up your exoskeleton. You think about the question over and over again. You desperately search through all the Rational Skeptic YouTube videos you can find, but all you really find out is that you can donate to their Patreon at patreon.com/skepticalliberalattheist24, when actually you should be donating to patreon.com/Cynikay. Your breathing gets heavy as you begin to panic and finally submit. I don't want to suffer because I don't like the feeling. I don't like the feeling because it feels unpleasant, and fighting unpleasant experiences feels pleasant. You now realize that your very will to live and every single thing that it motivates is more romantic than you initially thought, that you too are dominated by your feelings, dominated by what you feel needs to be done, and what feels right. I don't really like the term genius. I think it's wrong because I don't believe that there's such a thing as a genius. The word implies some sort of exceptional ability, a power that you can inherently have or simply a power that most people don't possess. And that's not true. Sure, there's the possibility that you might have a learning difficulty or something like ADD, but that doesn't mean that you can't be just as smart as the people you call geniuses. I'm not that smart. I know how to look smart, I know how to sound smart, and yeah, I know a thing or two, but I sure as shit am no genius. Genius implies that a person is somehow better or more capable than another. No one is born with knowledge. Knowledge comes from a willingness to engage in activities that provide you with information, and to analyze the information you're presented with, and even then, you'll always be very limited in what types of knowledge that you can acquire. You have access to the internet, and so you have access to the entire history of human knowledge. But in spite of that, you don't really bother with it, nor do I. It's too much effort. But even if you and I did bother with all that knowledge, we'll never understand what it's like to not have access to it. It's all very well that you know some big words, but wisdom can't be gained from a book written by an old pious psychologist. Good judgment comes at the price of circumstance and maybe even a little bit of tragedy that directly affects you. Only circumstantial experiences can provide that. I never intended to make a 30-minute video debunking Ben Shapiro's poor understanding of human biology. Plenty of people have done that, and it should be obvious. I wanted to explain why whatever it is that he so vehemently pursues, it doesn't matter, and he should give up. Hopefully I've done a decent job of explaining why. Not that I expect him to stop. Ben shit the fuck attacks identity, more specifically transgender identity as well as progressivism, because he believes that they're both irrational, but in the end he's embodied an identity that presents itself so arrogantly that it's become the very boogeyman that he claims to have waged war against. Ben Shapiro is a professional bully who thinks he knows way more than he actually does about the world around him and the people in it. So why don't you want to suffer or die, Ben Shapiro? Okay, I just realized that sounds like a threat. It wasn't meant to sound like a threat, it was supposed to be poetic because hey, thanks for watching my soy-induced SJW rant. If you liked it, feel free to subscribe. Also, because YouTube cares more about Trevor Noah, I'd suggest clicking the bell so it actually notifies you when I post a new video. Also, I have a Patreon now, link to that in the description, as well as a little PayPal link if you just want to make a once-off donation. I have many problems with my brain, and I can't hold a job. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go disappear for another month while I try to figure out what the fuck I'm going to talk about next. PewDiePie's definitely on the table, but I don't want to get doxxed by edgy 13-year-olds. Thanks for watching.